If you had to pick just a few flours to go with, I always have almond flour, coconut flour, regular white gluten-free flour, and cassava flour, and actually arrowroot. Hello, Andrea here, your personal wellness connector, bringing busy and overwhelmed women like you clarity and simplicity in their health journey. That is my mission, and let's be honest, when we try to get healthier, one of the first things we look at is white flour, right? Or carbs or bad carbs, right? And big portion of this is the flours. They're used in pretty much any carby substance that we consume. So it's a question I get all the time. Okay, Andrea, I'm trying to cut the white flour out. I'm trying to cut the carbs out. What is a good alternative? Because I don't want to just quit cold turkey and give up some of my favorite foods. And keep it health simple. I believe the number one tool is keep it simple. Let's find you an alternative to what you're already eating, or an alternative way to make what you're already eating, right? This is huge. I mean, this was my biggest thing. I'm Slovakian. I grew up in New York. I'm like, load up the carbs, give me the good stuff, right? And again, this is not something you're going to be consuming every single day, but I wanted to really take you on a journey here with some flours that I use as staples in my household. So let's start from the beginning and go to some low carb options. So if you're somebody right now that's trying to practice keto, or you're going low carb just for whatever reasons, and there's many reasons to go low carb for a limited time or a longer period of time, I would stick to two flours: almond flour, coconut flour. So with almond flour, I have it in this little stash here, my stash, and I keep it in the fridge because once it's open, almonds in general for freshness are better kept in the fridge. So almond flour is really good. It's also a great alternative for baking. However, when you do bake with almond flour, my experience has showed me to also mix it up with coconut flour. It just gives your food a better consistency and a better taste and a better like fluffiness. So a lot of low carb recipes, you will see almond flour together with coconut flour, which is perfect. And these are actually your two low carb options. I always try to go organic or at least non-GMO. This one right here is organic, as you see the sticker. If all you could find or afford is non-GMO, then go for it. But it's better than nothing. That way you know you're eating healthier, but you don't want all of these toxins and all of these GMOs in your foods that are causing other health issues. So let's try to stick to always organic or at least non-GMO as much as possible. So almond flour, again, great low carb alternative. I personally don't think it tastes too much like almonds. So if I'm trying to fry a chicken a little bit, I coat it in almond flour and I don't feel like I'm eating a chicken with almonds, if that makes sense. Coconut flour, on the other hand, it's amazing because it's filled with really good fats. It's filled with fiber. However, unless you're making like coconut shrimp or something along those lines, or you want your meat or your food to taste like coconuts, I wouldn't use it for meat dishes, or I don't use it for meat dishes unless, again, you want it to taste like coconuts. But it's absolutely an amazing alternative for baking, especially mixed together with almond flour. If you're someone that's not technically looking to be low carb, you're just looking for healthier alternatives, then I would suggest always looking for gluten-free and grain-free options. Gluten is a protein found in wheat. It's something that we are, I wouldn't say allergic to, but sensitive to. We don't feel that good after we consume it all the time. It actually damages our gut lining, causing things like leaky gut that you've been hearing about, right? So I prefer to go, it's easy. I get my alternatives and I just go gluten and grain-free as much as possible. And then that way, when I'm going out and I'm eating something that maybe consumes gluten, it's not as big of a deal because I'm not consuming it on a daily basis in my home. So I hope that makes sense. One of my first favorite and most basic gluten-free alternatives is literally gluten-free flour. So that kind of looks like this. And this one right here is non-GMO, right? It's not organic. If you could afford or find organic, go for it. Again, if not, let's stick to the non-GMO option. The reason I love gluten-free flour is because with my experience, it has resembled regular flour the best. So if I'm making some crazy recipes, I'm Slovakian, so sometimes I make these like Slovakian noodles for my chicken noodle soup and things like that. It calls for regular flour, and the only alternative I really found that makes the same consistency that I'm looking for is regular gluten-free flour. I use this when I really want my recipes to taste as authentic as possible, but I want to keep away from that gluten, right? So that's kind of like my number one, but I wouldn't want to use it in every single recipe. So that's that. My second option that I absolutely love is cassava flour. Cassava flour is gluten-free, it's paleo. This is a non-GMO brand. I actually really love this brand. Cassava flour actually comes from a yucca root, which some of you might have been reading about these days. And what I love, they actually have a really cool grains-free tortilla recipe back here. I think a lot of you guys have heard of the brand Siete. They have a lot of cassava tortilla chips and wraps, and I'll make another video about that because I actually love that brand. But basically, it's a really great alternative that also tastes very similar to regular flour. Again, it's not low carb, it's higher in carb, but it's amazing grain-free and gluten-free alternative. It's got about, so a serving size is 1/4 of a cup, and that's at about 28 grams of carbs. It's got about 3 grams of fiber, so not too much fiber, but it's got some in there. I honestly just love it. Again, I urge you to experiment with it. So every time you're making a different recipe at home, try one of these flours and see which one is best for different things that you're trying to. And what's great about cassava flour also, it has a mild flavor and a really light texture. So you really could do anything with it. All right, next up is Arrowroot Powder or Arrowroot Flour. What I love about Arrowroot is that I actually use this. It's my number one alternative for thickening sauces. So every time we use traditional flour to thicken a sauce, I now turn to arrowroot powder. It's actually a really good replacement for cornstarch as well. It's good with sauces, thickening pie fillings. It even says, I don't make much pie, but maybe you do. It says for baking breads and muffins. I actually have never baked breads or muffins with this. I'm not a big bread baker. But if you have, please put it in the comments because I would love to hear your experience with it. It's got same thing, about 28 grams of carbs per serving, not really filled with fiber or anything else like that. It's actually from an arrowroot plant that's found in tropical climates, which is really cool. So it's been kind of a staple of mine. Again, number one for thickening sauces. It's also really good at making things crispy. So if you have an air fryer at home or use one of those or trying to get things crispy in your oven, I would recommend sprinkling this on there and seeing how that does for you. Next up, we have Amaranth Flour. So this is something I actually don't use too much. Amaranth, here you go. It's actually not grain-free. So if you're following a paleo diet or if you're trying to stay completely away from grain, I would not recommend this one, but it is gluten-free. Revered by the ancient Aztecs, amaranth, meaning everlasting in Greek, is a rose-colored flowering plant native to North America, which is really cool. Amaranth flour is used to bake breads and muffins, make homemade pie crusts, whip up a batch of cookies. I've tried actually cookies with amaranth flour that turned out delicious, but I mixed it together with regular gluten-free flour as well. So it's actually a very good mixing alternative. Adding it to other flours like gluten-free flour or almond flour. It wouldn't be my number one choice if I only wanted to purchase a few flours for my staples, but it is an alternative that I wanted to give to you that is gluten-free, but again, not necessarily grain-free. All right, whoops. Did you see all that flour poof up in the air? Last but not least, it's our buckwheat flour. Right here, this I got a non-GMO verified and USDA organic buckwheat. I have to say it slowly, otherwise I get it wrong. Flour. What's really cool about this, again, this is not a grain-free option. It's just a gluten-free option. But you've probably heard a lot of like buckwheat pancakes or pancake mix or waffle mix. So this is something that's it's a very earthy type of taste. And it's also really high in fiber or higher in fiber than most flour. It's got some nutrition in there. It's really not anything I use day to day, but it is a great gluten-free alternative for you to try. Again, we all have different recipes. We're all from different cultures and we're trying different things. I would say that go ahead and try these alternatives, all of them GMO or organic whenever you can. Try them out, mix them together, try them out with your typical recipe. I would recommend if it's something that calls for like a sauce thickener, for example, and you make a big pot of something, put it aside, put a little portion aside and put a little bit in there to test it out. Don't yell at me and ruin your whole dish, okay? Or ruin your whole dish and then come back and yell at me. I'm just saying, I gave you a warning. But anyway, if you had to pick just a few flours to go with, I always have almond flour, coconut flour, regular white gluten-free flour, and cassava flour. And actually, arrowroot, just because I use this, I love this the most for thickening anything really that you need to thicken. Those are my staples. Those are the alternatives. You could get them on Amazon. You could get them on Thrive Market, which is my favorite place to shop for discounted, healthier alternative product, or you could find them in your local supermarket. A lot of local supermarkets actually have a lot of these alternatives now, which I'm so happy about. Go ahead, pick one up. If all you could do is pick up one alternative, pick up one. Start there. As you throw away your other flours or as you finish your other flours, go ahead and pick up more. These are just simple tricks that you could replace in your household for better health, not only for you, but for your family. Thanks for joining me. Leave any questions or comments below. Share this video out with your friends and other busy and overwhelmed women that are just like, where the heck do I start? What do I do? How do I replace the staples that I use every day? And again, I'm Andrea, your personal wellness connector, and I am so grateful for you to be watching. Thank you so much.